He fought and bled for the princess. Now the queen claims him. He gritted his teeth, gripping the plasma rifle that felt almost too heavy in his hands. Around him, the soldiers of the Lothari Empire fell one by one, their screams drowned by the roar of energy cannons. Kale knew he had only moments to act. The princess was somewhere ahead, trapped in the palace orbiting the planet's core. He could see her through the cracked viewports of the bridge, pale but determined, trying to coordinate the retreat of her guards. Kale's heart pounded. He had fought for many causes, but this one was different. Protecting her wasn't just duty. It felt like a chance to prove that humans were not to be underestimated, even in a galaxy where alien species ruled the stars with power and fear. The first wave of enemy fighters broke through the outer shields. Kale dived to the left as a beam tore through the air where he had been standing seconds before. Sparks flew across the floor, and the smell of scorched metal filled his nose. The Lothari guards beside him screamed as another blast struck, throwing bodies like ragdolls across the deck. Kale did not hesitate. He fired into the nearest enemy fighter, seeing the alien pilot's face twisted in surprise before the ship disintegrated. He moved forward, faster than instinct allowed, his legs pumping through the chaos. Every step was a struggle against the weight of the injuries he had already sustained. A jagged piece of metal cut across his arm, burning with white-hot pain, but he ignored it. He could not stop. The princess's life depended on him, and he had promised silently that he would not let her fall. Humans were not used to being heroes in this galaxy, but Kale wanted to change that perception, one life at a time. Through the smoke and fire, he saw her again. Princess Saren was signaling to her remaining guards, guiding them toward the escape shuttles. Kale sprinted across the burning floor, dodging falling debris. His heart skipped as he saw a Lothari guard hit by a stray energy bolt, falling to the deck with a scream. Kale grabbed the falling man and shoved him behind a crate, shielding him just as another blast tore through the corridor. He reached the princess's side and crouched beside her. "You have to leave now," he said, his voice rough from the smoke and strain. She looked at him, her green eyes wide but resolute. "I will not leave without you," she said. Kale shook his head. "You are the future of your empire. I am just one human soldier. Go, I will hold them off." Saren hesitated, but then a blast shook the corridor, and the ceiling above them began to collapse. Dust filled the air, choking them, but Kale did not stop. He grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the escape shuttle. Alien soldiers were closing in from both sides, their armor glinting in the fiery light. Kale raised his rifle and fired without thinking, each shot precise, guided by adrenaline and the need to survive. The aliens fell one by one, surprised by his speed and cunning. A wave of enemy reinforcements arrived, larger and faster than before. Kale realized they would not make it through unless he created a diversion. He saw a fuel conduit running along the wall, and an idea formed instantly. With careful aim, he shot at the conduit, and a massive explosion sent aliens flying in every direction. The blast was so intense that Kale was thrown backward, his body hitting the wall hard. Pain shot through his chest and legs, but he forced himself to rise. The princess stumbled, but he caught her, steadying her before she fell. Finally, they reached the shuttle bay. The escape craft was small, barely enough for the two of them, but it would do. Kale threw the doors open and helped Saren inside. She turned to him, fear and worry in her eyes. "Kale, get in now." "I'll hold them off," he replied, pushing her toward the cockpit. "No, we leave together," she said, but Kale shook his head. There was no time. He could see the alien soldiers closing in, their weapons raised, their eyes locked on him. Kale swallowed the fear in his throat and took one last look at the princess. "Go," he said firmly. "Go and survive. That is all I ask." Saren hesitated only a moment before the shuttle doors closed, and it launched into the sky. Kale stayed behind, firing at the advancing enemies with every ounce of strength left in him. He felt his body weakening, his vision blurring, but he did not stop. He could hear the hum of the shuttle's engines above, carrying her to safety. That thought alone gave him strength. The battle raged around him. Alien soldiers stormed the corridor, their armor piercing even the reinforced walls. Kale fought with precision, using every trick he knew. He ducked behind pillars, rolled across the floor, and fired from angles no one would expect. Each human movement seemed to confuse the aliens. They had not faced a human soldier like him before. Kale felt a grim satisfaction as one by one they fell, but even heroes have limits. Kale's body was failing. His breathing was shallow and his limbs felt like lead. He stumbled, barely catching himself on a fallen pipe. The last of the Lothari guards who had survived joined him, giving him a brief smile before they too were taken down. Kale knew he could not last much longer. The alien commander was approaching, massive and armored, with weapons that hummed with deadly energy. Kale aimed, fired, and missed, feeling the recoil knock him to the ground. Pain shot through his entire body. As the alien raised its weapon for the final strike, Kale closed his eyes, accepting what was coming. But the blast never hit him. Instead, a bright flash filled the corridor and the aliens were thrown back, screaming. Kale opened his eyes and saw the shuttle, now armed with emergency plasma turrets, firing from the sky. Princess Saren had turned the tables. She had survived and she had protected him in return. Kale struggled to rise, his body battered and bloodied, but he allowed himself a small smile. Humans were underestimated across the galaxy, but he had proven that courage, determination, and quick thinking could make even a single human a force to be reckoned with. The Lothari Empire had seen it firsthand. Finally, the corridor fell silent. The aliens had retreated, their ships destroyed, their soldiers defeated. Kale collapsed to his knees, exhaustion and pain overwhelming him. But in that moment he felt a strange warmth, a sense of accomplishment, a sense that his actions had meaning beyond his own survival. He had fought and bled for the princess, and now somehow humanity's presence had made a mark in the Lothari Empire. As the first rays of the planet's twin suns broke through the smoke-filled sky, Kale looked up. The princess's shuttle was safe above, carrying her to a world where she could continue her rule. He felt pride and a quiet hope. Humans were far from the most advanced species in the galaxy, but they had something the aliens often overlooked: heart, courage, and the stubborn refusal to give up. Kale knew he had survived something extraordinary. The galaxy had taken notice, and the name of a single human soldier would be remembered in stories whispered across star systems. Even as he lay wounded and battered, Kale allowed himself one thought: he had saved her. He had survived. And in a universe that had doubted humanity at every turn, he had proven that humans could stand against any force, face any danger, and rise victorious. The shuttle landed softly on the royal platform of the Lothari Palace. Kale's body ached with every movement, the wounds from the battle burning as if the fire of the enemy ships had followed him. He leaned heavily against the walls of the landing bay, catching his breath. Princess Saren was beside him, her hands still trembling slightly as she watched him carefully. Though her expression was calm, her green eyes betrayed a deep worry. "You shouldn't have stayed," she said quietly, almost as if afraid her words would summon another attack. "You could have been killed." Kale forced a tired smile, wincing as he tried to stand straighter. "And let them take you? Not a chance. Humans don't give up that easily." She studied him, as if measuring the weight of those words. Humans were unusual in this galaxy, unpredictable and stubborn, traits most alien empires considered weak. But Kale had just proven otherwise. He had faced impossible odds and survived. That alone changed the way many would view his kind. Saren guided him slowly through the corridors of the palace. The guards, still in shock from the sudden turn of events, gave him wide paths and respectful nods. They had seen his courage firsthand, and though many of them disliked humans for their brashness, they could not deny his skill. Each step Kale took was careful, each movement calculated to avoid aggravating the injuries that still throbbed in his arms, legs, and chest. When they reached the throne room, Kale froze slightly at the sight of the queen. She was tall, regal, and imposing, her posture perfect even after witnessing the chaos that had unfolded across her empire. Her eyes were sharp and intelligent, but now they were focused entirely on Kale. He could feel her gaze like a weight pressing against him. "You are the human who fought for my daughter," she said, her voice calm but powerful. Every word carried authority. "The one who bled and stood while my soldiers fell around you." Kale bowed slightly, feeling both respect and unease. "Yes, your majesty, I only did what was necessary to protect the princess." The queen studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she stepped forward, her gaze never leaving his face. "And yet, one human has done more for the Lothari Empire in a single battle than many of my trained soldiers. I find that impressive." Kale nodded, unsure where this conversation was heading. The princess stepped closer, giving him a small, reassuring glance, but Kale could sense her own unease. Something was shifting in the air, something heavier than the aftermath of the battle. The queen circled him slowly, as though examining an unusual artifact. You have proven yourself in combat, yes, but there is more to the Empire than battles. Leadership, loyalty, strategy, and influence. You are now part of a story that extends beyond this palace. Kale swallowed, trying to make sense of her words. I only want to survive and ensure the princess's safety. That is all. The queen smiled faintly, but there was a sharp edge to it. That is where humans differ from others. You do not seek power, yet power notices you. I have a proposition, Kale. I wish for you to serve the Empire, not as a soldier only, but as a symbol of human courage and resilience. I want the galaxy to see what one human can do. Kale felt a chill run through him. This was more than recognition. The queen was claiming him, not as a guest or ally, but as a representative of her power. I am honored, Your Majesty, but I am not certain I can serve in the way you intend. My place is with the princess wherever she goes. The queen's eyes narrowed slightly, but she did not frown. Your place, Kale, is wherever you choose, but the Empire has chosen to honor you. I will not force you, but understand this. Humans who prove their worth rarely return unnoticed. You have changed the course of today. Tomorrow, the galaxy will want to see what you can do. Saren stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on Kale's shoulder. Mother, she said carefully, he saved my life. He fought for me when no one else could. We cannot treat him as a subject of politics. He must be free to decide his path. The queen nodded, her gaze softening briefly on her daughter. You are wise, Saren. I will allow the human to speak for himself. But know this, Kale, your actions have consequences beyond your understanding. To fight for the princess is also to step into the heart of the Empire. Allies, enemies, opportunities, they will all follow you now. Kale felt a weight settle on his shoulders. The battle had ended, yet it was clear that a new challenge had begun. Protecting the princess had thrust him into something larger than life, something that involved politics, influence, and expectations he had never asked for. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. I understand, he said quietly. I will do what I can to help, but I will not allow myself to become a pawn in games I do not understand. The queen regarded him with interest. Good. That stubbornness, that determination, that is why humans survive where others fail. I will not underestimate you, Kale, nor will I allow the Empire to do so. The princess led him to a small chamber where he could rest and tend to his wounds. Kale sat on the edge of the cot, the weight of his injuries making even simple movements difficult. Saren knelt beside him, pulling a damp cloth to wipe the blood and grime from his face. You've done more than anyone could ask, she said softly. I owe you my life, Kale, and more than that, I owe you my trust. Kale looked at her, trying to return the small smile she offered. I only did what anyone else would have done, maybe not as well. She shook her head. No one else would have done it like you. Humans are different. They fight differently, think differently, survive differently. You've proven that today. He glanced toward the window, watching the alien sky glow as the twin suns set over the palace spires. The battle was over, but he knew the peace would be temporary. The queen's words echoed in his mind. Allies and enemies were everywhere, and humans, though clever and brave, were still outsiders in the galaxy. Yet Kale felt a spark of pride. Humanity had survived worse odds, and now it had earned respect, even if grudging, from the most powerful alien empire he had ever seen. The chamber door opened quietly, and the princess returned, carrying a tray of food and water. She set it down beside him, her eyes lingering on his injuries. You need to eat, she said firmly. You cannot think clearly if you collapse from exhaustion. Kale nodded, reaching for the food with shaking hands. I never thought humans would be treated like this, respected even after all the fighting. Saren smiled, a small, gentle expression that seemed to shine despite the chaos around them. You deserve it. The galaxy needs to see humans at their best, and you are one of the finest examples. Kale felt warmth rise in his chest, but it was mixed with unease. Respect was one thing, but the queen's claim and the attention it brought was another. He did not fight to be a symbol. He fought to protect life, to survive, to prove that humans could endure. Now, the entire empire would watch him, and the weight of expectation pressed heavily on his shoulders. Hours passed, and Kale rested while the princess stayed nearby, her presence both comforting and unsettling. He had always been a soldier, accustomed to the clarity of combat and the simplicity of survival. But court politics were a different kind of battlefield, subtle, shifting, and filled with unseen dangers. He knew he had to learn quickly if he wished to survive the challenges the Queen had already promised. Night fell over the palace, and Kale gazed out at the alien city below. Towers of shimmering light and elegant spires stretched into the darkness, proof that this empire thrived on intelligence, strategy, and strength. He had fought with strength, but he realized that surviving here required more than brute force. He would need cunning, patience, and the ability to read the intentions of those who walked among the stars. The princess watched him silently. "Kale," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper, "whatever happens, I trust you. Not just as my protector, but as someone who understands what it means to be human in a galaxy that does not always value us." Kale met her gaze, a flicker of determination in his eyes. "Then I will not fail for you and for humanity. The galaxy will see that humans are more than just soldiers. We endure, we survive. And when it matters most, we fight with everything we have." Saren smiled, though her eyes were thoughtful. "Then we face the next challenge together. Whatever the Queen wishes, whatever the Empire demands, we will face it. And maybe humans will show them something they never expected." Kale leaned back, exhaustion heavy in his bones, but hope stirring in his heart. The battle had ended, but a new journey had begun. One that would test not only his courage and strength, but his ability to navigate a world that had never truly known what humans could offer. And somewhere deep in his chest, Kale felt the spark of pride. Humans had survived countless dangers on countless worlds. Now they would survive the court of the Lothari Empire. Kale woke to the quiet hum of the palace at dawn, his muscles stiff and his mind alert despite exhaustion. The previous day's battle still haunted him in flashes of heat, smoke, and screaming alien soldiers, but there was no time to dwell on it. The Queen had requested his presence, and Kale knew her summons would not be idle. Humans were rare in her court, and one who had proven himself in battle would attract attention, both welcome and dangerous. He dressed slowly, each movement careful with his battered limbs. The wound on his arm throbbed relentlessly, a reminder that bravery often came with a cost. Princess Saren was already awake, pacing the small chamber with the quiet grace of someone accustomed to command. Her face was calm, but the way her eyes followed him suggested concern. "You'll need strength for what comes next," she said quietly. "The Queen does not summon humans without purpose." Kale nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. "I am ready," he said, though he was unsure if he truly was. Combat had been one thing, clear and immediate. Court and politics were different, subtle, dangerous, and unforgiving. And yet he understood the stakes. His decisions here would affect more than just himself. They could shape the fate of the princess and perhaps even the empire itself. They walked together through the palace corridors. The hallways gleamed with polished metal and luminous panels, the walls lined with statues of past rulers and scenes of glorious victories. The Lothari prided themselves on tradition and honor, but Kale noticed how the Queen's influence had touched even these spaces. The air felt controlled, deliberate, and heavy with expectation. When they entered the throne room, the Queen was already waiting. She did not rise but gestured for them to approach. Kale took a careful step forward, feeling the weight of the room's silence. Even the guards were still, watching the interaction unfold like spectators of a play. "You have survived," the Queen said, her voice calm yet firm. "And in doing so, you have proven yourself far more capable than I anticipated. But survival alone is not enough. The Empire must trust you, and trust is earned not only through strength, but through wisdom, strategy, and loyalty." Kale straightened his back, meeting her gaze. "I understand, Your Majesty. I will do what I can." The Queen's eyes flicked to the princess for a moment before returning to him. "Good. Then you shall face a series of trials, not to punish you, but to test your judgment, your adaptability, and your ability to act under pressure. Each challenge is designed to reveal whether humans can truly operate at the level of the Lothari elite." Kale's stomach tightened. He had faced impossible odds on the battlefield, but this was a new type of trial, one where failure could mean more than death. It could bring disgrace or put the princess in danger. Yet he felt a spark of determination. He was human, and humans thrived in adversity. The first trial took him to the training grounds. Lothari officers and strategists were already assembled, observing as he was handed a complex device unfamiliar to him. It was a simulation unit, designed to recreate battlefield conditions with multiple variables, including unpredictable alien forces, environmental hazards, and civilian considerations. Kale glanced at the screen and the intricate controls, feeling the familiar rush of adrenaline. The simulation began. Waves of enemy ships appeared, firing in patterns designed to confuse him. Civilian transport pods moved through the chaos, requiring protection. Environmental hazards appeared at random, forcing him to adapt quickly. Kale's fingers moved over the controls, instinct guiding him as much as thought. Humans were not perfect. They made mistakes, but they were resourceful, able to improvise in ways even advanced alien species sometimes could not predict. By the third wave, Kale had developed a pattern. He anticipated enemy movements, diverted civilians to safety, and coordinated defensive drones with precision. The observers murmured, some leaning forward, others exchanging impressed glances. Kale felt the thrill of success, but he did not allow himself to relax. The Queen's trials were never simple. He had to stay alert. After the simulation, he was led to a negotiation exercise. Kale had to mediate between two alien factions with opposing claims to a newly discovered planet. His task was to reach a resolution without causing war. He listened carefully, weighing their words, noticing subtleties in tone and hesitation. He offered compromises, proposed joint ventures, and reminded them of mutual benefits. Slowly, the factions began to move toward agreement. When the session ended, the Queen's voice filled the chamber. "Impressive," she said simply. "You have shown not only combat skill, but the ability to think, reason, and influence others. These are qualities rare in humans, yet you display them naturally. I am intrigued." Kale bowed, trying to hide his exhaustion. "I am honored, Your Majesty, but I am only one human. I still have much to learn." The Queen's lips curved into a faint smile. "Then you shall continue. Your next trial will test your adaptability in unfamiliar terrain." He was taken to the planet's surface, a barren world of jagged rocks and shifting sands. His task was to navigate to a distant energy relay and secure it from a simulated enemy. The environment was harsh, and he quickly realized that the Lothari had designed the trial to push him to his limits. Temperatures shifted wildly, storms arose without warning, and alien predators were simulated to test both his reflexes and patience. Kale moved carefully but efficiently. His body was tired, his wounds aching, yet he refused to slow. He climbed jagged cliffs, leapt across unstable terrain, and used his surroundings to create traps for the simulated enemies. Each obstacle required him to think quickly, adjust, and anticipate. Humans were adaptable. When conditions changed, they did not panic, they adapted. Kale's success in navigating the terrain impressed the Lothari observers. By the end of the trial, Kale was exhausted, sunburned, and bleeding from minor cuts, yet he had completed every objective. The Queen was waiting for him when he returned, her expression unreadable. "You have exceeded expectations, Kale. Your endurance, your problem-solving, it is remarkable. And yet there is one final aspect to consider. The heart of loyalty is not proven through skill alone. You must demonstrate commitment to those you serve." Kale understood. The Queen wanted him to prove that his actions were not driven by self-interest, but by a willingness to protect and sacrifice. She was testing his character, not just his abilities. The next assignment took him back to the palace, where a staged threat had been created. A group of insurgents, actors in this case, simulated an attack on the royal family. Kale had to respond, protect the princess, and ensure no one was harmed. It was a test of decision-making under pressure, of leadership and courage. When the simulation began, chaos erupted. Screams filled the corridors, alarms blared, and simulated explosions sent guards scattering. Kale's instincts took over. He moved quickly, directing the palace guards, ensuring civilians and staff were safe, and creating barriers to prevent harm. At every turn, he had to weigh risk against outcome, speed against precision. By the end, the simulation concluded without casualties. The Queen nodded, clearly pleased. "You have passed, Kale. You have demonstrated that humans are not merely fighters, but thinkers, leaders, and protectors. The galaxy will remember this." Kale bowed again, feeling relief and a quiet pride. He had survived the battlefield, the simulations, and the tests of loyalty and intelligence. Yet even as he basked in the small victory, he knew that the Queen's recognition came with expectation. Humans were admired, yes, but they were also being watched, measured, and placed into a system that could demand far more than he was ready for. Princess Saren appeared at his side, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You've done well," she said softly. "I am proud to have you by my side. The Empire may test you, but remember, you are not alone." Kale nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle once more. He had survived countless dangers, but this was a different type of battlefield. Here, intellect and patience were just as important as courage and strength. He understood now that being human in the Lothari Empire meant proving not only what he could do, but who he was. As night fell over the palace, Kale looked out across the alien city, its towers glowing under the light of twin moons. He had faced trials that tested every part of him, body, mind, and spirit, and had emerged stronger. Humans were underestimated across the galaxy. Yet here he stood, proof that courage, ingenuity, and determination could elevate even a single human to a place of honor among the stars. Kale knew the Queen's trials were far from over, but he also knew that he had proven a fundamental truth. Humanity's greatest strength lay not in technology or numbers, but in the spirit that refused to yield, the mind that adapted, and the courage that faced the impossible. And as he rested that night, he made a silent vow. He would continue to show the galaxy what humans were capable of, for the princess, for himself, and for the species that had never truly been given its due. The first step had been taken. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges, expectations, and intrigue. But Kale's resolve burned brighter than ever. He had fought, bled, and survived. Now he would prove that humans could endure anything the galaxy dared to throw at them. Kale had begun to understand the rhythms of the Lothari Palace, but comfort did not last long. The hallways that once seemed orderly now carried whispers, shadows of conversations that stopped as he passed. Even the guards, once friendly and respectful, looked at him with measured caution. The Queen's trials had proven his skill and loyalty, but Kale knew that admiration often bred envy. The higher one climbed, the more hidden dangers waited. He had been called to the council chambers early in the morning. The princess was already present, reviewing star maps and intelligence reports. When Kale entered, her eyes met his, concern clear in their brightness. "Kale," she said softly, "something is happening in the Empire. The Queen's influence grows, but there are those who do not welcome it. Or you." Kale nodded. He had noticed the same. The palace's atmosphere was tense. Servants spoke in hushed tones, and advisors avoided looking directly at him. The Lothari were intelligent, yes, but their politics were sharper than any battlefield he had faced. One misstep could cost him, and the princess, everything. The council chamber doors opened, and the Queen entered with her usual calm authority. She gestured for Kale to follow. "You have performed admirably, Kale. Today you will face a challenge of a different kind. Not combat, not strategy and simulations, but the test of vigilance and insight. There are those in my empire who would seek to destabilize the throne. You will help uncover them." Kale's jaw tightened. This was no longer about survival on a battlefield. Now he had to navigate human-like intrigue in an alien court, a place where words could kill as surely as weapons. "I understand," he said, his voice steady despite the tension in his chest. The first sign of danger came quickly. During a meeting with advisors and officials, Kale noticed subtle signs. A flicker of hesitation, eyes that avoided his, hands that trembled ever so slightly. His training had taught him to read battlefield cues, but the same instincts worked in social situations. Something was wrong, and Kale knew it. After the meeting, he and the princess moved through quieter corridors, away from the watchful eyes of the court. "Do you think someone wants to harm the Queen?" he asked. Saren shook her head slowly. "Not harm directly yet, but there are those who fear change. They see your presence, your influence, as a threat. The Queen's favor is not welcomed by all. Some believe it diminishes their own power." Kale's mind raced. Humans had a natural instinct to protect, to act decisively, but in this environment, patience and observation would be equally important. He had to watch, learn, and strike at the right moment. One wrong move could lead to disaster. The first clue appeared in the intelligence reports Saren provided. Certain trade routes had been sabotaged, supply convoys attacked, and communications intercepted. Someone had inside knowledge. Kale studied the maps, noting patterns and inconsistencies that others might miss. The attacks were not random. They were precise, deliberate, designed to weaken the Queen's support without drawing immediate attention. He suggested a small, covert investigation, accompanied only by trusted palace guards. Moving through the shadowed corridors, Kale observed behavior, listened to whispers, and pieced together the network of subtle threats. He noticed an advisor who always lingered near sensitive documents, a guard who lingered too long near restricted areas, and servants who delivered messages in unusual sequences. It was patience and observation that finally revealed the plot. In a dimly lit hall, Kale caught the conspirators coordinating their next moves. Alien officers whispered in secrecy, exchanging coded messages and gestures. Kale moved silently, documenting their plans and memorizing the layout of their meeting spaces. The humans in him, the quick mind, the sharp senses, the ability to improvise, gave him an edge that the Lothari had not anticipated. Returning to the princess, Kale reported what he had discovered. "They are planning something," he said quietly. "Not today, not tomorrow, but soon. We must be ready." Saren's eyes were steady but serious. "Then we prepare. You've seen the court, Kale. You've seen how they move. You understand how dangerous this is." The next days were filled with preparation. Kale coordinated defenses, mapped escape routes, and trained a select group of palace guards in tactics that combined Lothari discipline with human adaptability. They ran simulations of attacks, rehearsed scenarios where information could be compromised, and reinforced key areas of the palace. Every precaution was taken, but Kale knew it was not enough. The conspirators were clever, patient, and willing to wait for the perfect moment. The day of the test arrived. Kale's instincts told him that the conspirators would strike during a ceremonial event, when the Queen and Princess Saren were most visible. The hallways were crowded, the air filled with the murmur of diplomats, advisors, and visitors. Kale moved silently among them, his eyes scanning for irregular movements, for anyone whose behavior betrayed intent. The first act of the plot revealed itself in a subtle signal, a guard who lingered too long near a ceremonial doorway, a whisper exchanged with someone in the crowd. Kale reacted instantly, diverting the attention of palace guards while simultaneously alerting Saren. She moved with him, calm and collected, guiding guests away from potential danger. The conspirators were caught before they could strike. Their plan to infiltrate the event, and so chaos was foiled by Kale's keen observation and quick thinking. The Queen arrived moments later, her gaze meeting Kale's. There was no need for words. Her approval was clear in her steady expression and the faint nod she gave him. In the aftermath, Kale worked with the Queen and the princess to secure the palace and prevent future conspiracies. The conspirators were detained, their plans carefully documented. The Lothari court had learned a valuable lesson. One human's intelligence and vigilance could outmatch even the most cunning of alien plots. Kale's efforts did not go unnoticed. Courtiers who had doubted humans now approached him with respect, seeking advice or assistance. Even those who had been wary of his presence could not deny his effectiveness. Humans were underestimated, yes, but Kale had proven that courage and cleverness could turn the tide, even within a court of intrigue. As the palace settled back into its normal rhythm, Kale allowed himself a moment of reflection. The battlefield had been easier in many ways. The enemy was clear, the objectives direct, and survival depended on strength and strategy. Here in the palace, the dangers were hidden, the threats subtle, and the consequences far-reaching. Yet he had faced them all and prevailed. Princess Saren joined him once more, her gaze fixed on the stars beyond the palace walls. "You have done more than protect me, Kale," she said softly. "You have protected the Empire, too. The Queen may see you as a symbol, but I see something greater, a human who understands honor, courage, and duty." Kale nodded, feeling a quiet pride. "I only did what had to be done," he replied. "But it matters that others see it. Humans often fight in ways others cannot imagine. We survive because we adapt, we think, and we never give up." Saren smiled, the faintest light in her eyes. "And now the Empire knows it too." "You've changed how they see humanity, Kale. That is no small thing." The days that followed were calmer, but no less filled with learning. Kale continued to train with palace guards, advise the Queen on security, and help the princess navigate the subtle dynamics of her court. Each task was an opportunity to demonstrate human ingenuity, each challenge a chance to show that courage was not only physical but also mental. Kale understood that his journey was far from over. The Queen's favor, the respect of the court, and the trust of the princess came with responsibility. He had proven humans could endure and outthink, but the galaxy was vast, and enemies were everywhere. One misstep, one miscalculation could undo everything he had achieved. Yet Kale felt no fear. He had faced impossible odds before, survived battles that seemed unwinnable, and protected those who could not protect themselves. Here, in the heart of the Lothari Empire, he would continue to show the galaxy what humans were capable of. Resourceful, courageous, and unyielding. The trials had revealed more than conspiracies. They had revealed him. A human who could endure, who could adapt, who could survive and inspire. And Kale knew that as long as he remained vigilant, as long as he trusted his instincts and worked with the princess, no plot, no enemy could break them. The palace, with all its beauty and danger, had become a new battlefield, one that required not just strength, but intelligence, observation, and human spirit. Kale was ready, and somewhere deep inside, he knew the galaxy was watching. Humans would be noticed, perhaps even respected, not for their technology, but for their determination, adaptability, and courage. And Kale would make sure they earned that recognition. Kale stood on the balcony of the palace, looking out over the city that stretched beneath twin moons. The air was cool, carrying a faint hum from the distant energy grids of the sprawling metropolis. For weeks, he had navigated battles, simulations, and conspiracies. He had proven that humans could survive where others doubted them, that their courage and ingenuity could shine even in alien worlds. Yet this night he felt a strange calm, as if the galaxy itself had paused to acknowledge what he had accomplished. The princess approached, her steps quiet on the polished floor behind him. She stopped beside him, her hands resting lightly on the railing. "Kale," she said softly, "tomorrow the Queen will recognize your efforts officially. You have saved lives, uncovered plots, and proven that humans are not to be underestimated. Do you feel ready?" Kale let out a slow breath, watching the distant lights flicker. "I don't know if anyone is ever truly ready for that kind of attention, but I've done what I could. The rest is beyond me." Saren nodded. "And yet you have done enough, more than enough. The Empire sees what humans can do because of you." The next morning, the throne room was alive with anticipation. Dignitaries from across the Empire had arrived, their varied forms and colors filling the vast chamber. The Lothari court watched in silence, a tense respect in the air. Kale stood near the princess, feeling the weight of hundreds of eyes upon him. His body ached from old wounds, but his mind was sharp, his senses alert. This was no battlefield of weapons, yet the stakes were just as high. The queen entered, her presence commanding immediate attention. She did not smile at first, but there was an unmistakable warmth in her gaze as it settled on Kale. "Today," she said, her voice clear and resonant, "we recognize one who has demonstrated courage, intelligence, and loyalty beyond expectation. One who has protected not only my daughter, but the Empire itself. Kale the human." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Humans were rare in positions of influence, and one being publicly recognized by the Queen was unprecedented. Kale stepped forward, bowing respectfully. "You have fought in ways that many of us could not imagine," the Queen continued. "You have survived impossible odds, shown resourcefulness, and protected those in need. Today you are honored, not just for your deeds, but for what your example represents. The galaxy must see that humanity is capable of greatness." Kale felt a surge of pride, tempered with humility. Humans had always been underestimated, dismissed as fragile or unsophisticated. Now, in the heart of the Lothari Empire, he stood as living proof that courage and ingenuity could rival the most advanced civilizations. Princess Saren stepped forward, placing a hand lightly on his arm. "Kale," she said, "you've shown me and this empire what humans are capable of. You've earned our trust, our respect, and our admiration. Thank you." Kale nodded, finding his voice. "I only did what any human would do in my place. We survive, we adapt, we fight when needed. I am glad that it has helped you and the Empire." The Queen's eyes gleamed. "And now, Kale, you will have a choice. You may remain at the court, serving as a symbol of human courage and advisor to the Empire. Or you may continue your journey among the stars, carrying the honor of humanity wherever you go. The choice is yours." Kale looked at her, then at Princess Saren. The path before him had been filled with battles, both physical and mental. He had faced enemies on the field, conspiracies within the court, and the weight of expectations that stretched across the galaxy. Yet he understood now that true courage was not just in fighting, it was in choosing one's path wisely. He began, then paused, letting the words settle in the air. "I will not stay as a pawn or a token." But I will continue to protect those who need it, to show what humans can do, and to serve when my skills are required. I will carry the honor of humanity wherever it is needed." The queen regarded him carefully, then inclined her head. "A wise choice. You act not for personal gain, but for the greater good. That is the essence of human spirit, and why your kind is admired even in a galaxy that often doubts it." The audience in the throne room watched in awe. Dignitaries, advisors, and officials whispered among themselves. Even those who had doubted humans could no longer deny the truth. One human had changed the course of events, protected the princess, and outshone expectations across an alien empire. Kale had done more than survive, he had inspired. In the days that followed, Kale prepared for his next journey. He trained, planned, and coordinated with the princess to ensure the empire remained secure. Every step of the way, he demonstrated the resourcefulness that humans were known for. Even alien soldiers came to respect him, noting his quick thinking, adaptability, and unwavering courage. Kale also spent time with Princess Saren, discussing strategy and the future of her empire. She valued his counsel not as a servant or subject, but as a trusted ally. Together, they worked to improve security, strengthen alliances, and ensure that the lessons of recent events were not forgotten. The queen watched from a distance, pleased by the humans' continued impact. She understood now that Kale's presence was not merely symbolic. He had proven that humans could operate at levels that even the most advanced alien species had underestimated. His influence extended beyond combat. It reached diplomacy, strategy, and the protection of life. Kale's final test, in many ways, was the ongoing challenge of leadership and influence. He knew that threats would always arise, and that patience, intelligence, and courage would be tested in ways unlike the battlefield. Yet he faced the future with determination, confident that humans could endure, adapt, and thrive. One evening, Kale and Saren stood on the balcony again, overlooking the city below. The twin moons cast a silver light on the spires and walkways, giving the metropolis a quiet, almost peaceful beauty. Kale felt a rare moment of calm, his body still weary but his spirit strong. "You've done more than anyone could have expected," Saren said softly. "The Empire respects you, and humanity owes you more than you realize." Kale shook his head, a small smile on his face. "I am only one human, but if what I have done inspires others, then it is worth it. Humans are capable of greatness when we are given the chance, and when we refuse to give up." Saren nodded. "Then go, Kale, carry that spirit wherever the stars take you. The galaxy will remember." As he prepared to depart the palace, Kale felt a surge of pride and anticipation. Humans had been underestimated for centuries, dismissed as weak or insignificant. Yet here he was, recognized by one of the most powerful empires, respected by leaders and allies alike. His actions had proven that courage, intelligence, and adaptability could turn the tide, even across worlds dominated by other species. The shuttle lifted off, carrying Kale into the endless expanse of stars. He gazed out at the planets and moons below, thinking of the challenges and adventures that awaited him. The galaxy was vast, filled with dangers and opportunities, but he was ready. Humans had survived far worse, and he knew that their spirit, resourceful, brave, and unyielding, would carry them through anything. Kale's heart swelled with determination. The queen's recognition, the princess's trust, and the empire's respect were honors he carried with him, but they were not chains. They were reminders of what humanity could achieve. He had fought, bled, and survived. He had proven that one human could make a difference. And as the stars stretched out before him, infinite and uncharted, Kale made a silent vow. Wherever he went, whatever dangers he faced, he would continue to show the galaxy what humans were capable of. Courage, intelligence, and determination, these were the qualities that would define his species. And through every challenge, Kale would stand as a living testament to the spirit of humanity. The universe was vast and often cruel, but humans had endured, adapted, and thrived. Kale knew the journey ahead would not be easy, yet he felt ready. The galaxy had taken notice, and he would ensure that humanity's light shone brightly, even in the darkest corners of space. As the shuttle accelerated into the stars, Kale allowed himself a rare smile. He had completed one journey, but the adventure was just beginning. Humanity had a place among the stars, and Kale would be at the forefront, proving to every world that humans were capable of greatness beyond imagination.